Hey there guys, sorry it's taken me a little while to get this video done for you, but just in following the little chat we had the other day about how we can keep our bones, joints, ligaments, tendons, muscles strong, and how we can keep ourselves fit and healthy so that we can therefore keep our immune system strong and move better and live longer. I was just following up with these videos on some different exercises that we can do at home during this particular lockdown period. Now, obviously, once gyms can get open again and we can start doing more, I highly recommend either getting yourself a trainer or learning some great strength training movements in the gym where we can apply more weight and using various machinery and whatnot to put more load on the muscles of our body and keeping that stimulus going. But for now, there's some things that can be highly beneficial that we can do at home. I'm going to break it up into three categories. So basically what we're looking at is creating a lot more mobility, and that comes from creating more stability in the body. Whenever the body's not stable, that's when the body tries to create more stability. So for example, if the hips aren't stable, if our glutes aren't strong and we don't have much stability there, the spine obviously often wants to really tighten up. So muscles throughout your back and whatnot, you can get very stiff and sore up even in the neck area and whatnot when you don't have that stability where it needs to be. So what we can do is really go through some of these movements, activations, and strengthening certain muscle groups that are really going to strengthen everything, but create more of a stability where we need it, which in turn gives us more mobility and freedom of movement. So three categories. I'm going to go through first the glutes to get that hip stability. A major muscle group, in fact the biggest muscles of your body, that in a lot of cases I see are just not being used really at all. And like we talked about the other day, if we don't use it, we eventually lose it. And I see this problem a lot with people where their glutes aren't even firing anymore. They're not even being used. When we go to sit up out of a chair, we're using different muscles. We're not using the glutes that we need to be using for those movements. So glutes is the first area to get that hip stability. I've got 3 exercises for that one. And then we're going to have a look at the core strength and stability there. So if we can get a really strong core, that's going to keep everything upright, keep great posture. It's going to keep everything in line and create that stability through the trunk, which is so important. And then the third area is basically our upper body, so back and shoulders, creating more mobility there, but also creating more strength through those areas. Better strength, better movement, and just keeping everything better and moving better and functioning better as well as getting stronger. So I'm going to go through just 3 exercises of each. So we've got 9 in total. Now, I recommend doing these once, if not twice a day. You might choose only 1 from each category. That's fine. That's a great start. If you can do all 3, look, they only take a couple of minutes. So and we've got a lot of time at the moment with this current lockdown and whatnot. So I want to challenge you to give it a go and get your body moving, go through some of these movements, and I'd love to hear your feedback on the results it has for you, the changes it makes, whether you're moving better, whether you're feeling freer or stronger, more stable. I'm sure it's going to make a big difference for you. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first exercise I want to show you of the hip stability, the glutes, is one that gets them really activated. It's like flicking a switch. It's like turning them on. So if they haven't been used for a while, if they're not used to getting engaged, this exercise basically only uses the glutes and it really gets them firing pretty well. So what we're going to do is lay down, bottom leg completely straight, with your top leg, point your toe just behind the heel of the other foot. And then we're going to roll forward so that your hips are facing the floor like so. We don't want to let those hips come up at all. I see a lot of people doing this exercise kind of more like that, and they're not really using their glutes much at all. We want to keep those hips really straight and stable, keep them pointing towards the floor a little bit, and just raising that leg up, which means we're not going to get a lot of movement, but that whole movement is being performed from those glutes, and you'll really feel them contracting very hard on there. So 25 reps I recommend doing on these, 25 on each leg. Just getting that real squeeze and hold as you come to the top, keeping them really stable. The better you're doing them, the more you're going to feel them working. And that brings us to the second exercise of our glutes, of the stabilization of the hips. Laying down on your back, chest right up, so you've got a bit of arch in your lower back. Feet are fairly wide apart, and we're just going to come back onto the shoulder blades and raise those hips right up, getting that good stretch through those hip flexors, and then controlling it down. So this again is using those glutes to get that hip extension, and you'll feel the contraction of those glutes, but you'll also feel that good stretching through here. The key here is keeping the knees outwards. If those knees start coming in, that's when these muscles want to switch off a little bit more. So keeping the knees out. Now, if that's a little bit easy for you, try about 15 reps or so of those. But if that's feeling a bit easy, another advanced method is just going one leg at a time. So putting one foot over the other, or you can just keep one leg up in the air and just pushing those hips up. So all the pressure then becomes on the one leg, and really getting that force through. So about 15 each side, whichever way of those you're doing them. And then the third and final one for the hips, for the glutes, is the squat. And we kind of went through this in our chat the other day, but basically if you get a seat, and I like doing these from a seat because you can kind of get a bit more focus into the movement rather than trying to balance as you're coming down without a seat. So if you get on the seat, feet apart, knees right out, leaning right forward over it, but keeping your chest out so you're not slouching. So you want to keep your chest up so your back's nice and straight. And then from there, as you're pushing your knees out, opening your hips, driving up through. So what we're trying to do there is we're not trying to roll ourselves up. We're trying to just lean forward, get that position. So then from there, we can push our knees out and then straight up. And again, we're getting that hip extension to get those glutes really working. On the way down, also try and keep those hips nice and open. So hips staying nice and open as you're sitting back into it, and you'll feel everything stretching out through here, but really getting those glutes really firing, and those, creating more hip stability, but also getting more strength through our glutes. So if that gets a bit hard, if that gets a bit easy rather, you can always grab a weight. Hold the weight, again, leaning forward, holding the weight close to your chest, pushing up through, like so. The slower, the more controlled, the better you're doing them, the harder they're going to be, the better you're going to be working those muscles and getting them stronger. So I recommend about anywhere between 10 and 20 reps of those. See how you go. But again, if you're doing them and they're feeling really easy, maybe you need to slow it down and just make them even better, which will make them harder. All right, so now I'm going to take you through 3 great exercises for the core. Now, the core isn't just about the abs. It is the abs, but it's also your other muscles around your whole center of your body, including your lower back. So there's a lot of these stabilizing muscles that make up your core that are really important for keeping the body stable, posture better, and more mobility and everything else we've talked about. So the first one we're going to do is a plank hold. You're just going to lay on your forearms and up on your toes. Keep your feet apart a little bit, and we're just going to lay flat as. But keeping those armpits down towards your hips. And that's going to keep those locked in there. So holding this for about 30 seconds. That's the goal. See how you go. You might not be able to get that far initially, but about 30 seconds is enough to really get those muscles activated and strengthening in there. If you want to go longer than that, by all means, go longer than that. And then the second great core one is a little bit harder, but see how you go with these ones. It's called a side plank. So we want one foot on top of the other, laying straight there. Again, armpit tucked in, down towards your hips, and we're just going to raise those hips right up onto the side plank. Try and keep it as stable as possible with 0 movement, or best you can. Holding that for about 15 seconds, and then do the other side. See how you go with that. You might not get 15 seconds to start with, but yeah, give it a crack. Okay, the third and final one for our core strength and stability is what I call hands to shoulders. So I'm going to give you the easier version of it first. Again, it's not that easy, but it's the easier version. what we're going to do is, kneeling down, pop your knees fairly wide. So you've got a nice wide base there. Hands down, pull your shoulder blades down so your armpits down towards your hips. Hips down, and then you're going to take one arm off, touch your opposing shoulder, slowly place it down. So we're trying to do this without moving those hips at all, keeping really stable. The more challenging version of this is having your feet up and doing the same thing. So just to show you front on, we're trying to keep everything really stable. We're trying not to roll the hips around like this. We're trying to stay really stable, which is making that core work incredibly hard to hold that position. If you can do about 8 or 10 on each side. Now, one tip I'll give you with these is the wider your legs are apart, the easier it is. As you get stronger with these, you can start bringing those legs in a little bit. Makes it a lot harder. Okay, so we've gone through the glutes, the stability of the hips, the core, and now we're going to look at shoulder and a bit of back and whatnot, mobility and strengthening there. So the first one I'm going to give you is actually 3 different exercises. We call it the shoulder big 3. This really helps a lot with our mobility in strengthening some of the stabilizing muscles around the shoulder. So the first one, hands by your sides, palms up, and we're just going to relax the muscles of the neck and just raising those arms up. Control it down, getting as high as you can, like so. We're going to do 10 reps of those. Once you've done 10, then you're going to roll the hands over the other way and then do another 10. So we're stretching them out through the top, controlling it back down. The third one is arms straight out, and we're just going to raise those straight up and back down. So you're really pulling those shoulder blades back together and then control it back down. This one's a little bit harder. Now, if those 3 exercises are getting a little bit easy, grab some 1 or 2 kilo weights or get a couple of bottles of water, provided they're the same weight, and use them to go through those movements. But initially, without any weight, they'll probably already be quite difficult to do. Okay, this next one is mobility of the spine we're trying to create, and also opens up the shoulders and everything else with it. It's one that's helped me a lot with my tightness over the years. So one arm down, so we're in kind of our clam position, knee on the floor, both hands together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my eyes on this top hand as I roll right over and try and get right down to the other side, and then rolling it back across onto there. So just opening right up those shoulders. I've got the table in the way, but yeah, right down. Give yourself some space for these ones, and then back down. About 10 of those each side, and you'll really start to feel a lot more movement through your spine, a lot more mobility there. And finally, we're going to look at a really great strengthening exercise of your upper body, which is our push-ups. It's strengthening the core, providing you're doing it properly, but also your shoulder and chest muscles and as well as your arms. So we're going to start with the easier version. On your knees, hands about shoulder width apart. Pull your armpits down towards your hips, and you'll feel those back muscles engaging. Push your hips forward, and then it's simply just bending those elbows, which is allowing your chest to come down and pushing back up. Now, don't worry about if you can't get all the way down. Doesn't matter. Just go to the point where you can still keep everything engaged and it's getting really hard, and then push back up. Now, the key with this is to not push up to there. That's not where we finish it. We want to just push to there and then into the next one. So everything's still braced on. Once you're feeling quite comfortable being able to do that, just work on your depth. Try and get that little bit further down until you're getting to the point where your chest is touching the ground. Once you're getting to there, well, then you can make it harder by jumping up onto your toes again. But it's about keeping that body really straight, keeping those shoulder blades down, so everything's really tight and stable as we're doing them. So give those a go. There's our 3 groups. Our glutes, providing that hip stability. Our core work, providing that strength of the core and stability through that core. And finally, our shoulder and upper body sort of mobility and strength that we've done with those 3 exercises. So 9 in total. Yeah, give them a go. It is a bit of a workout. And whenever you try something new, it's a workout. It's hard and it takes discipline. But it's only a couple of minutes of your morning. Get up and try these ones. And yeah, love to hear your feedback. Let me know how you go.